Let's remind everyone, Andre, to have their cameras on.
Sir.
Beauty.
All
And he's
right. Man of the hour is here. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Bigger Life Mastermind. Obviously, if you're here, you're part of an exclusive group. You're in the top 10% here in Canada for production. And we wanted to kick us off with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jason Abrams, head of industry. We know, Jason, you've done a ton of incredible things, but most importantly, we know that you are living the life by design. You're living that bigger life yourself. And so we wanted to start by asking you, what does that mean to you? And then we know you have a ton of knowledge to drop on everyone. So Jason, thank you for being here with us. We are so excited to hear from you today. So I'm going to kick it off to you, Jason. What does that mean to you?
Number one, it means that whatever you think I'm living, it's probably significantly less than that. And I think there's this thing that happens whenever you have a quote unquote speaker and they come in to talk about their great life. What they don't tell you is, hey, freshly divorced, don't have as much money as I wish I had, and my kid is missing 23 homework assignments. That's who I am, right? And by the way, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm wildly imperfect. And so I lead with that only because I've really struggled with the idea that there are people that somehow have it all together, and I've always felt like one that doesn't. So here's what I've come to understand. I'm wildly attracted to journeyers. And I think that other journeyers are attracted to journeyers, meaning that I invite people into my journey as imperfect and as screwed up as it is. I wake up in the morning and I walk into the bathroom, and no matter how much I'm working out or how much I'm eating right, I don't love what I see in the mirror. Then, although I have a GPS for all of the key parts of my life, I'm wildly incomplete and missing a lot of the key assignments for them. And every year I do annual goal planning, of which the majority of my goals don't happen. So if you're sitting here and you're like, we may have gotten the wrong speaker. Yeah, you might have. What I am good at, though, is documenting the journey that other people are on. And so it kind of comes down to me into three buckets. Number one is I call it imperfect bucket. It's this bucket where all of the imperfection within our life sits. And there's two ways to view that bucket. It's either a list of things that make you crazy and that drag you down, or it's a list of all the things that make you perfectly imperfect. I choose to think of it as the second bucket. I'm never going to have an empty inbox at work, and I'm never going to have an empty imperfect bucket in life. And I'm wildly okay with it. What I'm amazed at is I wish that list would stop growing at the rate that it does, but I'm also completely okay with having it there. Then I have bucket number two, which is my business. And in that bucket is how I make money. And in that bucket is what I do with my money, which is I buy things that go up in value and throw off positive cash flow. And in that thing is my job. So I got the businesses that I own, what I do with the money I make, and then my job. And the way that I think about that is the businesses that I own produce the money. The money then is used to buy the stuff that makes more money. The job is what activities do I do on a daily basis? And I've had points in my life where I've done a list of them and they make me want to drive off a bridge embankment. And I've had other times in my life where I look up and I love the list. And what I'm taken with on a daily basis is that most people wake up and trade their happiness for a dollar amount on a daily basis. And I think that's the dumbest, most short-sighted way to think ever. And someone would say, well, that's easy for you to say. You have a lot of money. That would be fair. The question, though, that you would ask is, do I have a lot of money because I was willing to trade, or do I have a lot of money because I did more of the things I like? And from all the rich people that I've interviewed, it seems to fall into bucket number two. Then I have this bucket number three, which is my life. And so real estate agents often get wrapped around the axle because this is a contact sport and real estate is completely fully on encompassing. It's like a whirlwind. But I want to be really clear. Real estate is not who you are. Real estate is what you do to make money. What you do with that money is who you are. And money only does a few things. Number one, it gives you more options. Number two, if used properly, it gives you more time. And number three, it gives you varied experience. That's all it does. The mistake is this thing becomes us, and we think who we are is a real estate job. It's not. It's just what you do for money. And so if I was forced to kind of draw it, which I could, I would think of it like this. In this top box, you have not perfect. And I always put it first because the strive for perfection and the way that you feel about your imperfections often colors how everything else feels in your life, which is so incredible because the people that love you look up and love you just the way you are. And you wake up and think, who do I have to be loved by more people? That's so wildly flawed. Then I'm going to have my business. It's going to be right here. And the way that I think about that, and I drew it at the CEO event, is your business is really easy. This is your database. This top part, that's the key to the whole deal. Underneath it are your systems. And by that, I simply mean, what's the system that you communicate with your database? That's what I mean. And then under that is going to be your administrative team. And those of you that are like, well, I'm a solo agent, I don't have an admin team. I don't understand that either. Doesn't make any sense. Your administrative team doesn't mean that you literally have an assistant that you pay. Your administrative team is everybody in your life that's conspiring to help you become a better version of you. Some of them are paid hourly. Some of them aren't paid at all. Like they're there though. Whether you treat them like they are or not is completely up to you. You're also going to have this thing over here, which is what feeds your business. And it's really easy. Leads lead to appointments, lead to signings, leads to closings. That's it. Like you can get as wildly complicated as you want. The best things in life are always the most simple, and everything naturally becomes more complicated. That's how your real estate business works. When these things work together, they produce money. That's what happens. As soon as they produce money, you have this box right here, which is called invest. I'm going to use my money to buy things that go up in value and throw off positive cash flow. The job is simply which of these components I'm doing on a daily basis. That's it. Under that, I then have my life. My life. And everybody gets really wrapped around the axle on life, which I totally get. But the only way to simplify it is to decide what is important to you. And it's really, really easy to do. And you're going to all roll your eyes and be like, oh, give us the new content. As soon as somebody writes new content for how to live a bigger life, we have to look in the last 200 years and ask why no one else figured it out. So there's no new content. All you see are people recycling the same content. And as long as it's based on a universal truth, it doesn't matter how old it is. This is why Ryan Holiday can show up in my office once a month and talk to me about the Stoic ideas that Aristotle was thinking about. You know how bizarre that is? Think about that. This dude wakes up and makes ideas that are 1,600-year-old into bestsellers today. And every time I sit with him, I have the same epiphany, which is, okay, all you're doing is speaking universal truth to me. And all we've done over the ages is make it fit into the current time we're living in. That's it. That's why people look up at Nostradamus and they say, oh my gosh, he was seeing the future. It was either that or he was just spitting a whole lot of universal truth that could fit into almost any time period there is. One of the two, and I could be wrong. And so what are the universal truths? It's easy. You're either going to have a mission, a vision, value, and beliefs, or you're not. Those are your only options. You either know what you stand for or you are willing to fall for anything. That's the choice. Most people skip this and they go right to how much money they want to make. And here's the reason we do it. Because in life, when we face a problem and we have the money to solve it, we face a trivial problem. But in life, when we face a problem and don't have the money to solve it, the smallest of life's problems become the largest of life's problems. So we spend our formative years solving that problem, which is, oh shit, if I pop a tire, I don't have the money to change it. Got to solve that. if I don't make money, I can't eat. Because think about it, what's money anyway? It's just pieces of paper with pictures on it, so we don't have to kill each other to get something to eat. Like, that's all it is. But when you're focused on making it to survive, you give very little thought to your mission, your vision, your values, your beliefs. This is reserved for rich people to think about. Okay. Now, did they start thinking about it because they were rich, or did they think about it originally, which what made them rich? My experience with Gary Keller is that he got clear on this in his 20s, and it's guided his entire life since. My experience in my life is I'm a 44-year-old man-child still struggling with it. He's a billionaire and I'm not. So let's follow his model instead of mine. Once I have this, it's really easy. I got to put these things into action. And the only way to do that is with drive. And drive simply means I have the motivation to do something, whatever that is. Then I have to have willingness. Willingness. Sorry, you can't read it. Willingness doesn't mean I'm willing to go do the thing. This is where the vast majority of people fail. Willingness simply means that I have enough of the desire and I'm willing to figure out the right way to do it. My gosh, do you realize, friends, that in the United States, you got 1.5 million real estate agents, and that half of them have sold 0 homes this year, which pretty much means that there's 750,000 ways to suck at this. Okay, all those people woke up and actually tried to do it. They didn't do this, which is figure out how to actually do it and win. They skip that step and they go right into being busy. But busyness doesn't mean business, and it certainly doesn't mean success. It just means busy. So do I have the willingness to learn how to do it the right way? By the way, that's why KW is an educationally based company. It's also what makes a bunch of you leaders crazy, that you'll teach a class and no one will show up for it. It's not because you're not a great teacher, and it's not because they don't need the content. It's because they don't understand that the second step to succeeding is actually learning the way to do it. Then I got time. And all that means is, do I have the ability to make the time to do the thing? I got to be willing to do it. I got to figure out what it is. I got to have the time to do it. Then once I have that, the key to the whole deal, energy. Do I have the energy to now go do it? And energy doesn't mean motivation. It means capacity. Because energy is this thing that we have an unlimited amount of, yet we always feel like we're on empty. And that's why it's so difficult. It's why Mel Robbins is so successful with her 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I mean, keep in mind, she's had 44 million people watch that TED Talk. And I'll just give you the whole TED Talk in 9 seconds. Anytime you know you should do something, your brain will talk you into not doing it. Instead, simply count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then do the thing. That's what short circuits your brain from talking you out of it. That's why she has made millions of dollars with that idea. And some of you are like, holy shit, that's so simplistic and so silly. How could that be worth anything? Because it actually works. And you've watched people all over the world change their life simply by counting backwards. Don't use it to get a tattoo or break up with your spouse. Do use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to do the stuff that you know matters. That's how energy works. And for some of y'all in different phases of life, I'll tell you how Gary came to this conclusion. It's that he had the drive, the willingness, and the time. And he has the physical energy, because he's a health freak, to actually play with his grandkids. Like if I watch, they come into the office, he gets down on the ground with them, he holds them in the air, he throws them around, he stops every meeting. It's unbelievable. The other side of the family, they don't have the energy like he does. And so if you want to play, but you're not able to, that's sad. So you got to have all these pieces. Once you now know the secret, then you just have to make a list of the things that matter to you. Gary's list came out of, page 127 of the one thing, when he said, okay, cool. For him, it's his spiritual life first. Then it's his health. Then it's his job. Then it's his business. Then it's his finances. Then it's his personal relationships. And that might be your list too. I wish I had the capacity for that at this stage in my life. It's pretty much my wealth. I got that one down. My key relationships, I'm working on it. I'd rather not raise a sociopath. I'm 50-50. He'll come out okay. The people that work with me every day, I spend more time with my work family than my home family. That's a price that I've been willing to pay for the success I have. And I've made that choice, and coming to peace with it has been a journey for me. And I'm okay admitting it. I get in front of rooms all the time, and everyone's answer for their big why is their kids. And I'll just be candid. I love that for those of you that do it. That's not mine. Mine was about wealth, power, validity, helping the people closest to me. And that didn't just mean in my family, it meant my business family. And I was so ashamed to admit it for so long. But what's important to me is going to be different than what's important to you. The shame would be not knowing what it is. And I think that's why the vast majority of people that set annual goals don't ever see them to fruition. Because they set goals that solve momentary challenges. I look in the mirror, I don't like the way I look today. I'm going to set a goal to get in shape. And then when it gets really hard, they quit. Anyone ever join a gym in January? Me too. So that didn't work. The math on it is astounding. 67% of every New Year's resolution is abandoned by the 15th of January. Yet everybody wakes up and has annual goal setting retreats. And they have, and we're going to do a forward for our team. And we're going to set an annual goal. Well, I have no idea what math supports that concept. Matter of fact, I can't find any that says it works. And that's the last piece of this, which is none of this could ever be an annual goal. Like living a bigger life is a life's mission. This work is never complete. And by the way, if you go on an annual retreat with the team and you come out of it with a great GPS and you laminate it, and it ends up, we're going to have 411s, and you get all this stuff, and none of it lives and breathes, and the same number of people fail every year, and yet you continue to do it. I don't understand. So here's the way that I think about it, is that I got to look up and I got to set bigger goals. Meaning, don't tell me what you're going to accomplish. The only reason we even have a calendar is so you people can pay taxes, right? It wasn't called taxes. It was called tribute. And a calendar was put into place so everyone knew when tribute was due to whichever king we were all serving at the time. No offense. And then what happens? We all got really good at it. As a matter of fact, between Canada and the United States, these countries are better at levying and collecting taxes than almost any place else in the world. And I grade it not by how much they collect, although no one collects more than the United States. I grade it by the number of people that let it get collected. Meaning that we as a societies, and we're a shared society, I'd like to think, we're very compliant when it comes to paying our taxes. In the rest of the world, that doesn't exist. And so this idea of annual goals and these calendars doesn't serve you very well because your life isn't broken up like that. You've taken someone else's view of time and you've allowed it to become yours. Anything you could accomplish in 365 days, I don't care. Who would care? Why would you actually? Like, who decided that was the number? The government. So think of it a different way. What's the long enough timeline that makes you wildly uncomfortable to think about? Like, what's your wealth plan for the next 30 years? Because if I said to you, everyone on this call, we're all going to do a wealth plan. All of our lives' missions is to be rich. And if yours isn't, you're probably on the wrong call because anything worth doing is worth getting rich while you're doing it. Everyone's going to be worth $50 million. What's your plan? If you came back to me and showed me some bullshit about what you're going to do over the next 12 months, my head would explode. I've never seen that. Unless you're like going to go build a piece of tech. And even then, good luck. But if you say, okay, I'm going to be worth 50 million, here's my 30-year wealth plan, you do realize it's buying 2 properties a year. That's all it would be, based on your average sales price in mind. 2 properties a year over 60 years, you'd probably be worth 50 million in the end. And if you came up short and you were only worth 35 million, so be it. When people say that compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe, no one gets it. What they're actually saying is that time compounded with return always wins. And every year at the vision speech, when we show the value of real estate and the trend line, and every year people say, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. I'm always like, what are you all looking at that you think it's so expensive? The trend line doesn't lie. Markets will be above it, they'll be below it. But even right now in the US, everyone thinks they did a poll, like 80% of homeowners think that their housing values are inflated. It's only 9% above the 40-year trend line. It's not real. So how does it look? Here's how it looks. You got to pick a goal out here for the things that matter in your life. And this is 10 years. This is 20 years. This is 30 years. That should inform what you do today. What you do next, quote unquote, year. What you do tomorrow. But here's the thing. The things that have to happen to reach this goal have to happen whether it takes 12 months, 6 months, or 3 years. They're the same things. They're just road signs telling you you're on the right path. Keep going. You'll hit Ottawa eventually. Like, that's all they are. The fact that you've decided you're going to do them in 12 months, that's not real. You're better off figuring out what all these points are and then waking up every day and saying, great, it might take me 6 months. It might take me a year. It might take me 9 months. I got to get to this point. I got to get to this rock to jump to the next one, to jump to the next one. Awesome. What do I got to do today to make that happen? What do I got to do tomorrow to make that happen? What do I got to do the next day to make that happen? Now a 411 makes sense. Now a calendar makes sense. But to show me how to go from here to here as your annual goal setting, and then wake up at the end of this and then decide what's next. Shit, you could end up like this. You could end up over here. You might come down here, come back up here, take a left down here, then go over here. You ever see people whose life is in a constant state of recreation? If it's you, I'm not making eye contact with anyone. If you've ever seen those people, it's because they're following this model. And by the way, every time they recreate, it feels right. That's what's so confusing about it. And you feel liberated and you feel good. And you get here and you're like, I'm going here. Here we go. I'm going here. Now we're going to go. And it feels good. You're as addicted to the dopamine of new as you would be addicted to something that you would consider to be negative for you. That's as dangerous as the person who doesn't ever set the first goal. You know why it's as dangerous? Because you all are likely to end up in the same place. And you're like, no, not me. I'm goal driven. But you don't even know what the big goal is. You're just going to get what you get. Probably change it in 7 months. That's where everyone gets all wonkadoo. That's where everybody goes wrong. And the reason this is so appealing to people is because the minute you switch directions, you get to let go of all of the shit. Like, because in every part of life, it accumulates. And you look up and you say, gosh, I'm looking for greener pastures. I just need a fresh start. I'm more excited about these ideas than I am about those ideas, because those ideas, it turns out, are a real hassle. And there's a lot of problems and they take a lot of time. I'm going to go do this new thing. I'm going to start fresh. And then the bucket gets filled up again. And then you're like, man, I'm carrying around the same bucket as last time. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to do something else. I'm pick up this bucket's empty, a new idea bucket. It's wildly intoxicating. And by the way, every time you do that, you get a massive dopamine dump into your body. The natural chemical equation of life is change equals anxiety. Anxiety equals dopamine. Dopamine runs out and you're left with cortisol. Like, you could fight nature all you want. Or you could look up and just realize that in some ways, you're the ultimate drug dealer. All of the things that are happening in your body and your thoughts, they're all chemical and biology. You couldn't change them if you wanted to. I'll prove that to you. If you were driving in a car, you ever been driving in a car and you're doing whatever you're doing, and then you slam on your brakes so that you don't crush somebody in front of you, and instantly you feel it through your entire body. You literally feel it move, this heat through your entire body. Do you think that there's anything on the planet that you could do to stop that, to literally stop, and this is a controversial word, the evolution of how your brain works? Do you think there's anything you could do to keep that from happening? I want to change that. When I slam on the brakes to not kill anybody, I want to suddenly feel blissful and a sudden sense of cold. I'll start focusing on that daily. That'll become my mantra. Wouldn't matter. You could wake up every day and say it. I love panic. Wouldn't matter. And somehow we think that the laws don't apply to the way that we would hit goals. It's insane. So I'll land this plane because I didn't know if you had more than one question. I spent 27 minutes on the first one. Here's how this all comes together. Anybody who doesn't plan the battle battles the plan. Fact. You're the architect of the plan. And so if at any point in life you look up and don't know where you are, it might be because you were thinking in too short of a parallel. There was an assignment that Gary gave once, and he said, I want you to write your eulogy. When you die, what are people going to say? And I crushed it. Like I'm learning how to be a writer. Jay's trying to help me. It's taking a whole village to make me into one semi-human. And I wrote this amazing eulogy, and I gave it to Gary, and he read it, and he's like, gosh, wouldn't it be so fantastic to be remembered this way? And I said, yes. And he said, well, who do you envision reading this? And I said, my son. And he goes, man, read that part about what your son said about you again. That got me. And I said, yeah, I thought it might. And I read it, and he was like, man, read it again. This is so good. And I read it again, and he goes, Jay, come listen to this. Jason, read, what is this? And I said, it's how my son would think of me after I was gone. And he's going, I'll read it to Jay. And I read it to Jay, and he goes, I love that. Get King in here. He brought King in, and he read it. And he goes, friends, have you heard how Jason's son is going to remember him? And everyone was like, yeah, that's incredible. That's how I want to be remembered too. And Gary goes, great. Jason's going to go up to the board, and he's going to write how he showed up for his son yesterday. Go ahead. And I was like, no, I'm good. You can do something else. And he was like, no, go ahead, write up. How did you write about your day yesterday with Jack? And I got to the board, and he said, go ahead, write it. And I wrote, I didn't see Jack yesterday. And he goes, yeah, cool, awesome. I knew that. Come back and sit down with me. I came back and I sat down, and he put his arm around me and he said, I love you. I said, I love you too. And he said, the man that you want to be won't exist just because you want him to. In the end, it isn't how you wanted to be remembered. In the end, it was how you showed up yesterday and the day before and the day before. And so you're living this great life only in your head. So why don't you go take the rest of the day and go pick up your kid and go hang out? And I started crying like a baby. And I got up and I left and I went to his school and had to call Christina so she could tell me how to actually do that. There's a process for that, which is, I don't have to get into the details. In any event, I had never done that before. And it was a great day. So I'll land the plane this way. The size of the life that you live will be different than the one in your head if you don't actually wake up and realize that it all fits on one sheet of paper. And that the entire planet right now is conspiring you to believe that it's bigger than that. It isn't. If there isn't one sheet, then how could everyone be on the same page? That's why I write books of one-pagers. If there's ever more than one page, we can't all be on it. Anyway, Andre, that's what I think.
That's absolutely incredible. I know that I know Sandy's got a couple questions calling as well. Jay, I know we don't have you for much longer. Everyone, don't run away. We want to unpack this after Jason jumps off. Jason, how much longer do we have you for?
Well, I have a few minutes. Good for us. Gary's always running a little late.
Amazing. Sandy, take it away.
Hey, Sandy.
I can unmute. There we go. Jason, thank you. When we live in this world of Keller Williams, where there's opportunities everywhere, right? And what I'm hearing you say is keep it simple. How do we? What's in a minute or two? What's one way to look at that in a day-to-day basis? Like practically, how do we ignore the distractions and actually keep it simple and focus.
Here's the problem and with life, right? Is as you become perceived to be more talented, as the world looks up and says this person wins, the number of opportunities you have starts to exceed the amount of time that you have. Which is why folks will say the most powerful word at Keller Williams is focus, because the people that can maintain it end up giving the biggest businesses. And yet the whole place is trying to get you unfocused. Because as soon as you start winning as an agent, it's like, oh, you should start a team. And as soon as you do that, it's like, you should start a group. And as soon as you do that, it's like, have you thought about expanding? And then as soon as you do that, it's like, we should get you into a market center. And then they're like, hey, have you ever thought of coming into my world? And we can call it, we could all wear black vests. Like, and before you know it, like, it all gets really confusing. Here's the only advice I could give you. Absent of understanding your mission, vision, value, and beliefs, every idea is going to sound like a good one. And I use mine as kind of a tool. So if you said to me, kind of, what's my mission? I would tell you it's to conquer big opportunities so that my sustained wealth, power, and validity can be shared with those closest to me. And that's not just a sentence that I wrote on a sheet of paper one day. It's the true compass for how I make decisions. So when someone came to me and said, hey, we want you to open up Keller Williams Spain. And I thought that was really cool. And at the time, I was going through a heck of a lot here in the US. And the idea of moving to Spain and living a different life and hanging out in Malaga and eating shrimp, like that all sounded really good to me. And then I looked up at my mission statement and I said, conquer big opportunities. Okay. Would being the #1 real estate company in Spain be a big opportunity? And I love our friends in Spain and I love their market, but that wasn't big enough for me. In the whole scheme of things, it's a relatively small country. And I looked up and said, okay, that one doesn't fit. I had another opportunity and it was going to be awesome. And I thought it could have been a blast. I was going to be working for the NFL because after I sold all those homes to athletes, I did the NFL network for a little while and they really liked it. And so this idea of having a non quote unquote football guy on the network was kind of cool. And then I looked up and I said, okay, big opportunity. Yes. ESPN's a good one. Valid. Yeah, I guess people tend to believe the idiots on TV. I was already an idiot on TV. So yeah, it makes me valid. Wealth. Well, I asked them how much they paid and then they told me couldn't do that job. And so like I use this idea as a true north. If you have no filter in life, you'll always be squinting. And I find that I'm always like, is that a good opportunity? Is that a good opportunity? I don't want to squint. So I need a filter. That's how I use it. I think other people write it on a sheet of paper and they think the assignment's done. And like, I just want to remind everybody, you're all independent contractors and you're all adult learners. There's no assignments here. Like, just so you know, like there's no grade point averages, like it's not pass fail. If you're not getting value out of the busy work you're doing, then you're doing the busy work wrong.
Wow, Jason, thank you so much for that. That was very powerful, very powerful. And you spoke about your mission and where it guided you in making certain decisions. Let's talk now about one of your values where it guided you, one of your personal values, where it guided you to make a professional decision.
Oh, I very much value personal growth and education. That showed up really kind of interestingly along my career. When I owned a real estate team, I did the training for our agents. And I did that because I wanted to make an impact in their life. When I was an OP, I actually did the PC coach role instead of the OP job. I was terrible OP, not good at anything that has a spreadsheet involved, but I was great at that. When I got onto TV for HGTV, I kind of used that show as a way. My idea was to teach athletes about how to not finish broke. My biggest disappointment in life is that in the first 2 seasons of that TV show, almost every one of them was broke in the end. And that's when I knew I had to get out of the athlete business. Like I was completely ineffective at training these young men and women to live financial free. And there was a lot of forces working against me, but I was an adjunct failure. The biggest change and what came with the MREA podcast. I never would have done that podcast had education and personal growth not been my core value, because the podcast is nothing more than hearing the life stories of these amazing real estate people. And through their stories, I learn about myself. I'm a journeyer. And so listening to other journeyers brings me profoundly closer to who I am. And that's the only reason I took this gig. And it's crazy because since I took it, I've been offered the presidency and some really, really unique roles at some of our competitors. And I look up and they don't match the value that I have, not because they're our competitors, but because they wake up every day and they deem their success by the number of real estate agents that they have in their firm. And I think that that's a measure of success. But I think the true success is how many of those people would look up and say, so-and-so changed my life. I hear that about Keller Williams all the time. KW changed my life. Mo Anderson changed my life. Gary Keller changed my life. So-and-so, Andre Chin changed my life. And can you give me the name of a single executive at a single other real estate company? Do you think if you go there, you think you're going to show up and be like, hey, everyone raise your hand if Dave Liniger told you something that matters over the last 30 years. Okay, go. I haven't found that in any of the conversations I've had. That's not a knock. It's just the difference of who we are. Remember, the only moat that anybody has in their business is the way that they make other people feel. The only companies that are excluded from that definition are technology companies because their moat is changing the way we live. So just remember, the value that you give dictates the value that you receive. And if you were to ask a customer of yours, what would you say? How would you grade me? You think they're grading you on anything other than how they felt during the process? That's how they're grading you. You know how I know? Because they all have the same conclusion. They close. You ever hear someone say, we closed, but it was a nightmare? Okay, in that moment, you got a bad grade. You ever hear the person say, we closed and we love our agent? It didn't mean that they love you as a human. It means they loved how they felt about the way that the closing went. That's our defensible moat. You know why? We make people feel good at scale. And other companies don't do that.
Wow, Jason, that was incredible. I only have like one little thing to add. I know you got to jump, and then if you're okay, maybe we get one or two questions from everybody else that's here. You started this thing with I'm only doing what makes me happy right now, and we know everybody's got bills to pay. This is a hard market. How do you differentiate between those two things? Like, hey, this is what makes me happy, but I got to pay the bills. How can you come to that conclusion in your business?
As soon as those things come into alignment, I think most realtors wake up every day and they say, how do I force myself to do an activity I don't like and do more of it? And I think that's the dumbest question on the planet. Like, if you don't like what you like, there's actually places for that. It's called prison. Like, they'll have you do shit you don't like all day long. That's not supposed to be the career that you chose, You chose. So if life is about choices, get better at making them. Wake up tomorrow and ask, what do I actually want to do today? Well, I want to play hockey today. Great. Play 3 nights a week in a beer league somewhere and just make sure that you're friends with everyone on the team. Call it a sphere of influence. You go do you. I want to play golf. I think I look good in orange pants and a yellow belt. Great. I bet you do. I think it's dumb, but if that's your thing, great. Play 4 days a week with 3 strangers each time. That'll be your sphere of influence. There's an agent in New Mexico who had struggled with her weight her entire adult life. She hires a MAPS coach. The MAPS coach says, what do you need to do? She says, I need to eat less and move my body more. He says, I agree with that completely. She says, I hired a coach to help me with my nutrition. Great, they're in. How are you going to move your body more? She says, I don't know. He says, well, get out of the box, figure it out. Here's what she did. She sends postcards to everyone in her neighborhood that says, I'm trying to get in shape. I'm going to walk every morning at 6:30 a.m., starting in the park in the middle of the neighborhood. I'm going to walk for an hour. Anybody who wants to join me, I'd love for you to. She sends that once a month to everyone in her neighborhood. Friends, she gets between 15 and 20 people to join her every single morning to walk with her. And on the weekends, she gets 30 to 40 people. And when I said to her, what's the difference between the weekend and the weekday? She says on the weekends, they bring their idiot husbands with them. I said, okay, it's fair. It's fair. Guess what? She is now listing 60 to 70% of the homes in that neighborhood. You know why? Because that's her sphere of influence now. And it's so beautiful to think about that. I asked her what her biggest aha was. And she said, I wasn't strong enough to wake up and walk for myself, but I am strong enough to wake up and walk for everybody else. And shit, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Like, I heard that and I said, she gets it. She's someone who you won't know her name, and she's probably living the biggest life.
We believe here in this circle, Jay, that proximity is power.
Mhm.
And who you surround yourself with really does matter. And this was the purpose of this mastermind, where we continue to challenge our thinking and build a bigger vision for ourselves. And I want to ask you this question before you leave. Who would you recommend as our next guest to come on for next month's mastermind?
Oh, wow. Have you all had Nikki Miller yet? So I think Nikki Miller's a genius. She taught me something that changed my life.
Okay.
And she'll explain it. And she's far more eloquent than I am, and she's a better speaker than I am. But she said here's the thing about life. She said, in life, everybody gets to pick their problem. Then they pick how they pay to solve it. And no one had ever explained that to me before. And I said, well, give me an example. And she said, well, let's do it right now. Raise your hand if you pay someone to clean your house. Anybody on here do that? Awesome. So you people had a problem. It was your own wretchedness, and you needed somebody to take care of that for you. I totally get it. No problem. You picked the problem. You're a mess. You paid for the solution, someone to clean it. Those of you that didn't raise your hand, let's be clear. You have picked the same problem. You're a mess also. You've decided to clean it yourself. You pay for it with your own time and expertise. That's it. One group doesn't have to feel good about it. One group doesn't have to feel bad about it. That's the choice. And think of it like this. Everyone on this call needs to, in a TCPA friendly and compliant way, touch their database personally once a month. Everyone in it. If you just did nothing else but call everyone in your system once a month, you'd make more money. The problem you've picked is you're in a database-driven industry. Now, if you know you're not going to do that, just go hire someone to do it for you. Call them a Care Bear. Remember Care Bears? They'd open their shirt in the rainbow. Go hire a Care Bear and say, your job is to call all my people once a month, and they have to love me for it. Go. Or you do it. But stop pretending it doesn't have to be solved. That's not a bigger life. That's avoidance. That's a smaller life. And that's why she's a genius. And she'll explain it better than I did.
Thank you for that.
That was awesome, Jason. We just have one question. I'm just going to bring, it looks like Kristen's got a question she wants to ask.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Question for you. I know you love, obviously, education and love to read. What are the top 2 most impactful books you have read lately?
I love thank you for asking. Can we do it a slightly different way? Only because that implies that stuff that's being written today is somehow better than stuff that was written before, and I think that's absurd. You know, there's more books about Warren Buffett during his life than Alexander the Great since his death. And I think it'd be really, really difficult to prove that Warren conquered more than Alexander. So let's do it like this. Any topic that you're struggling with right now, tell me, and I'll tell you the book to read. Or if you'd rather just email me on that, I can send you back the answer.
Send you an email.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jason, what's your email?
And that's open for anybody. It's jason@kw.com.
Yeah, we'll drop that in the chat.
And that's how I've always thought about it, Kristen, because here's the thing about the new books. I got these friends that have read they text me, oh my gosh, have you read 10x is better than 2x? Oh my gosh, have you read the blank code? Or, oh my gosh, have you read this one? It just came out. And I love some of those people. Not all of them, but I love some of them. But I also have recognized that their lives aren't improving at a rate that I would think would be uncommon. And so I look up and I say, okay, that's kind of like intellectual tourism. And I love tourism. When I go to a new place, I want to be a tourist. I want to see new things. And I do it just for the love of tourism. And some people do that with education. I don't. I'm not an intellectual tourist. I'm an intellectual, which means I have a specific problem. I'm going to go read every book on it. I'm going to formulate my model to solve it. And I'm not reading anything more on that topic. I'm on to the next problem. And I had that realization. I walked into the Library of Congress and I looked around and I was like, well, I'm never going to be able to read all this. And then I looked up and realized that every day someone writes a new book. And I was like, well, shit, I'm never going to be able to keep up. And then I had this epiphany, which was, I don't have to, just like I don't have to go visit every city and I don't have to learn about every group of humans. I got to think about what matters to me and then study deeply on that. And I felt this peace come over me.
I love that. That's amazing.
Makes it easier anyway.
Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could be like Mark King, who doesn't read but listens to everything and calls it reading. So you tell me, I don't know.
Hey, watch it.
He would admit it. He comes into my office and he's always like, "It's so fake. You have all these books everywhere," and I'm like, "Okay, so great." Because most people don't ever read the books they buy; they just love buying them.
True. They have smart shelves, right?
They really do. That's why. What was that quote? The best book is the one you actually read. All right, gang, I got to run. Let me just say this. If I offended anybody at all, it happens every time I speak. You don't have to email Gary. It's okay. You can just email me directly and tell me what I got wrong. I'm happy to take it up with you directly. And I want to thank you all because historically, we haven't always gotten it right in Canada. And it hasn't always been the forefront. And so we roll stuff out and it doesn't work for y'all like it should. And so at different times, we've asked a really, really proud country to act like an offshoot of ours. And that's really misguided. And I was a big part of that when we built Command. And some of the things y'all are still dealing with were mistakes that I made. I just didn't think about it. And my view has gotten wider as I've gotten a little older and I've been here a little longer. And so the idea of how you spell certain words and how currency works, I wasn't thinking about it. And Josh and I at the time were dreaming a lot of it up, and I got a lot of it wrong. And I'm really, really sorry. I'm also working really hard to make it right now. So I love you all. Thanks for having me. And I promise you we won't stop until we do. And it's always going to feel like we're making missteps, usually because we are. But Gary always says, don't grade us on the mistake, grade us on how we show up when you've pointed it out. Your leaders have pointed it out really clearly. We're working on it.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, everyone, don't run away. Obviously, we know that Jason just dropped a ton of knowledge on everyone, and we know that the best thing you can do from here, you're all top producers, the best thing you can do from here is find something actionable, find something that you're going to do within 24 hours from this. So before we jump away, we just want to do a quick little breakout session. We're obviously going to honor everyone's time. We just want to share some some takeaways, and what's something that you believe you will implement, change, or keep the same as you continue down your path. So we're just going to open that up quickly. Again, like I mentioned, just give us one thing, if possible, that you could go ahead and work on. So I'm just going to send that out now. Just waiting on everybody to come back.
All right, so people are still coming in. Mr. Clements, hello.
Hi, Colin.
Hello.
We're so close yet so far away.
I know.
That was great. Thanks for doing that. That was awesome.
You guys are welcome.
Yeah.
I like your first comment. Oh, really? I'm out.
I'm out. You know what? You know what's really refreshing though? Really, him falling on his sword about technology. That was really refreshing for him to go, hey, we've dropped the ball on Canada and we dropped the ball on the tech and we're working to do like it's so refreshing to hear people just take ownership on stuff because they really did drop the ball on it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Sandy, I think you're back, Colin, you're back as well. So guys, thank you everyone for being here. Obviously, we want to be honorable to your time. We know that it's noon, so we'll get you guys back doing what you love. We're going to do this every month. We're building out a list of people that we want to have out. So stay tuned for the emails. Reach out to myself, Sandy, Colin, if there's anything you want to know about our businesses or about this process and what we're going through. We believe that there's just a gap missing in Canada, and we thought that this was one of the ways to start helping us all achieve more and doing more. And you're here for a specific reason. So this is exclusive. We want to keep this a very tight-knit group of top producers and high-minded thinkers. And we're going to continue to do this throughout the rest of the year. So stay tuned for the emails as well as the rest of the contact information. We're going to make sure that we get this recording out to everyone as well, because we do believe that is important for you to have this. I would go back, I would watch this again, I would pick it apart. When Jason was writing on the board, I couldn't write fast enough to get everything there. So I'd go back and watch it again, make sure that you get that information down. But I think more importantly, do what you love, make sure that you're happy with what you're doing, and implement the rules into your life that are going to help you achieve your goals. I'm going to hand it off to my two partners on this, Sandy and Colin, let you guys close it out. But I had such a great time with everyone. Thank you for being here. And thanks for being amazing.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Well, I don't have too much to add, but I am excited to do this more often with everyone. So I am looking forward to this group growing. I know I think I saw about 50-ish people here today, which is about a 1/5 or so of what we actually have in the top 10% of Canada. And so if you know of some others in your market centers that are part of that, are top producers, and you want to invite them out, please spread the word. However, it is exclusive, so it's not for. We want to keep this a high-minded conversation and make sure that we're in the presence of, as Colin said, proximity of the right people. But I'm excited. I want to thank everyone for being here, and I know we have the best of the best coming in terms of guests. Jason, I know is quite a good one, but trust us, we're not lowering the bar. Not much, at least, from there. We'll have some really good people. We already got a whole bunch lined up. So it's going to be a great year and hopefully beyond with this.
Absolutely. And this entire mastermind was built around the premise proximity is power. And we're going to continue to focus on that. We're going to bring you the best of the best, whether it's in the industry or mindset, coaches, but to really elevate our level of thinking so that we can build a bigger life. Our mission while we were at Family Reunion was to also select some of the best speakers that we can bring here. So stay tuned. I think the next speaker that we have coming next month is someone who has coached the top, if you were to pick the top 20 people in all of Keller Williams right now, this person would have coached most likely half or 3/4 of everyone on that list, including Gary Keller's son, including coaching Jay Papazan for the last 4 years. So most likely that's our guest for next month. So stay tuned. I can't wait to start that conversation, guys. Thank you so much. It's a privilege. It's an honor. On behalf of Bigger Life Mastermind, thank you. Have a fantastic day.